Hello, students. Can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you are able to see me and the voice is audible and the screen is also visible? Can I quickly get a confirmation from you all, students? Can I go ahead with the explanation? Can I get a confirmation, students, if you're fine? I'm assuming that the class is audible. Yeah, let's start, students. Now, if you observe, if you see, before I start going with the mock number 2, I need to give you two insights before you think how you have to structure the answer. Now, actually, students, the pass rate for SCS is little lower, but they don't market it and show the pass rates are lower. The reason is it will affect the students' mentality, everything. And I have to be very transparent here, students. It's not lower, students, but it has some issues, if I'm not mistaken, just to give you some idea, students. It's not actually lower, but the only thing is, students, if I'm not mistaken, you have to understand currently where are you is the question. The company in you are here is at the strategic level, if I'm not mistaken. Now, if you observe in the previous classes, you are in the management level. So, students, in strategic level, whatever said and done, indirectly, you are the management. Strategic level is the management. Correct, no, students, if I am not mistaken. Now, you have to think like the management, think without a framework. Example, students, if you are in the management level, you have a authority above you. The higher authority is there. But in this case, you can argue with me, what about the non-executive directors and the shareholders? Yes, they are there, but they don't involve actively on a full-time basis. But if you see, for management level, there is a senior hierarchy. That is the strategic level who is effectively working on a full-time basis. Can I quickly get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you understood that point of view there? There is again something in the top angle. So you have to think within the border. But now, students, in strategic level, you have to be creative. That I saw in the answer of Linon. Excellent. Because Linon, one thing I have to say is that creativity. Because in strategic level, you don't have rules. Creativity, innovation, and you set rules. You set rules to the organization. Are you understanding that point, Dr. Sharmi? Can I get a confirmation from you? In here, who set the rules? You set the rules. Are you getting that point?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Okay.
the biggest challenge for many students is framework thinking. Now, framework thinking is something that happens when you work inside management level and operational level. That means you have to think within a framework only. But I think you may be aware about entrepreneurs who are really considered like Richard Branson. The uniqueness is innovation and creativity. The reason is, if you observe, they are in the top level, they set rules. Another example is your Steve Jobs. If you see Steve Jobs, they set the rules. Are you understanding, doctor, what's happening here? Can I get a confirmation from you? You are going to
Yeah.
set the rules. There is no dimensions to you. Example, Porter's 5 forces, you have to follow that in management level. But when it comes to strategic level, you have to design something even better than 5 forces. How are you going to do that? Because that's the ideology of a strategic level. You have to have the knowledge, but the differentiating part is how much you are thinking beyond the framework, the creativity. Now, students, if you observe, these mocks will effectively give you the creativity. The reason is I don't want a perfect answer. Now, if you observe Lenon's answer, he has thought like a strategist in an organization on how to handle a financial interest rate risk without using framework. For example, doctor, if you see in real life, the top level people, they are not technically strong with models. Correct, no, doctor, if I'm not mistaken. Although they are not technically strong with the model, they have a lot of thinking ability which is almost better than the models what is existing. So students, remember that is the thinking aspect that you have to keep inside your mind. Example, I'll give you another person. Even you see Elon Musk. Now he is the person who is making people redundant. Can you remember, doctor, when he took over Twitter, he made people redundant. Can you remember that, doctor, if I'm not mistaken? Correct?
Yeah.
But did he use any framework to make them redundant? Kurt Lewin model, anything like that? No, right? If
We
you
don't know whether he has or not. But I
no,
don't
but
think
if
he
you
did. I
he
don't
did
think he
no.
did.
If you see the reality, he didn't do it. The rationale behind that is if you are working below Elon Musk, let's assume you are the India head of Twitter. Okay, doctor. Can you immediately fire people like Elon Musk did if you are India head? No, no. The
No.
reason is you have to follow framework. In that case, you have to use all these models just to make sure the accountability part is managed. Correct? No? Now, if you go to the top level, you are only accountable to the investors and the shareholders. And the investors and the shareholders, in reality, they are not concerned about any models. They are concerned about maximizing their earnings only. Now, if you observe that incident, what happened? Elon Musk made the people fired. You see, he is the one who is setting up the rules. He is the one who is setting up the rules. So, can I quickly get a double Y in the chat box if you understood the way you have to think? Hereafter, although you are considered as a finance manager, you have to think more appropriately like an entrepreneur. I believe that everyone has got that understanding very, very clearly at the moment. Now, students, if I'm not mistaken, can we go with the next one is business ecosystems. This area is very, very important, not to memorize, but to have an idea. Because, doctor, when you are in a situation of a macro risk, this business ecosystem will play. I'll just guide you all how it works. Even Lenon has missed that point of business ecosystem. So if you observe, there are two factors to consider in business ecosystem. I'll just guide you one thing called the complexity in the industry. The complexity in the industry. How much the industry is complex to operate. And the other one, if I'm not mistaken, you may already aware that is known as what students? Orchestration. One is the complexity and the other one is what students? Orchestration. So I will just finish this first and I will just guide you on this orchestration and the complexity step by step. So this is the matrix for your idea. And this matrix knowledge is important, but no need to replicate the knowledge in the answer. So students, if you see complexity, it's very, 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 very important that certain industries are controlled by the government. Example, doctor, can I say alcohol industry? Can everyone start alcohol business? Or do you need to take license?
You need license.
You have to take license. Correct now, students? Alcohol industry is highly complex, not easy. Everyone can't do it. But if I'm not mistaken, I will just write down mango juice. Now you're going to start a mango juice business, doctor. Do you need to go to the government and get license to start a juice parlor? I don't think, no. So in that case, students, you understand complexity means how the industry is controlled. Another industry that is controlled by the governments is weapons. You can't produce weapons at your home and sell it in the market because you need to have license. And then, students, the most popular industry, if I'm not mistaken, is aeroplane manufacturing. Now, students, if you see in the world, there are only two major aeroplane manufacturers. One is the Boeing, as you know, and the other one is for students, Airbus. So, students, if you observe, certain industries are highly complex and it's very difficult to get the license to operate a pharmaceutical sector. Now, students, pharmaceutical business is not easy, students, because the reason is you have to get license in order to produce drugs and medicines. That is complexity. Students, can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you understood what is complexity, how government is controlling the industry? Now, this mango juice business, there is no control. The complexity is very less. Anyone can do mango business. That is not an issue. Now, coming to the next one is called the orchestration. Orchestration in economics, we call it as cartel, or another term for that is syndicate. Cartel or syndicate, meaning rivals form a union. Rivals form what, students? Rivals form a union. Rivals form a union. Example, doctor, in our lifespan, we only are aware about Pepsi and Coke. And the beauty of Pepsi and Coke is they never allowed a third competitor in the market. Do you agree with me, doctor? Yes or no? Wherever
In
you go, you find Pepsi and Coke worldwide.
internationally, no, but I have seen local
International, locally, yes,
substitutes.
but
Yeah,
the reach may be not so high as they have sponsorship, everything. And
yeah,
another thing is you look at the pizza industry. There are only how many well-renowned players in the market? Pizza Hut and Domino's only, correct? And there may be other players, but did they allow a third competitor to come into the market? Now, can we start a pizza restaurant, doctor? Do we have government restrictions like starting a medicine company? No, we can start. But the problem is the industry is so much controlled by Pizza Hut and Domino's, they will never allow a third party to join. Can I get a confirmation from you, doctor, if you got that understanding very clearly how they control the market?
yeah.
Is that fine? That is high orchestration. Now, students, if you look at another thing, example students, especially Asian countries, I don't think this happens in the Europe for sure, doctor. In Asian countries, you see, doctor, when you start a business, everyone will copy that. Correct, no, doctor? You start a saloon, next door also will be starting a saloon. You start a tea stall, next door also they will start a tea stall. So what happens is, example I can generally give you is a tea stall. Okay, or a common business which is popular in Asia is restaurant. Have you seen some areas, doctor, only food shops will be there in Asia? Everywhere food shop. And the next company, next shop also selling the same. So we call it as low orchestration. The meaning is these people are not united also. Now, students, I believe that is very clear for you all. Now I will come to the explanation. The industry is highly complex and the orchestration is very high. We call it as lion's pride. And this industry is the excellent industry for stock market investors because your industry has less disruption. Government support is there and orchestration is very high. I'll just write down petroleum. Now, students, if you see petroleum business, actually Middle East is dominating because all the oil producing countries have a joint cartel. I believe everyone is aware about that. And also, if you observe students, the other point of view is the complexity is also very high. For example, it's not easy to do oil refinery, everything. Government needs to give you approval in order to do that. Are you fine with that, students? Can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box if you are clear with that Lions Pride sector? Lions Pride sector. Can I get a confirmation from you all? So petroleum is one. Then students, aeroplane manufacturing. Now see, only two players are there. So these industries are very much complex, very much complex. Now, the next one, students, if I'm not mistaken, let's go to the worst case scenario, the right opposite. We call this as the shark tank. This is a horrible industry because government is not considered and the people or the rivals also not united. So there is price war. Example, farmers. Now you see farmers, the main reason is they don't have a joint alliance with another farmer. They will be fighting with another farmer, especially the farmers in the Asian countries. So in that case, students, this will be a shark tank. And the other one I can say is the SME businesses like restaurants, everything. And these are unregulated industry and the rivals are also not good. Now coming to the next one, students, if you see, the complexity is very low. Government doesn't involve, but the orchestration is very high. We call this as the wolf gang. The wolf gang business, students, if I'm not mistaken, is Pepsi and Coke. And another one is, students, Microsoft and Apple. Because students, Microsoft OS and Apple OS is only the two major competitors in the world. Now, if you see Netflix and Amazon Prime, correct, no students, Netflix and Amazon Prime, again, you observe students again connected, interconnected. So they will do the business successfully, but they will never allow a third party to dominate it. And students, the next one, we call it as the hornet nest. It's called as the hornet nest. The government regulations are very high, but if you observe students, all the players are producing heterogeneous products, not homogeneous product, heterogeneous product. Now, students, if you observe students, if you see in reality, if you see students in reality, now petroleum is again homogeneous. Petrol is petrol. Correct, no students? But this industry, they are selling it, but the government restriction is very high, but they are not orchestrated well with the rivals because their product is not similar to the rivals product. Example, students, I can effectively say universities. Now, students, if you observe, universities are regulated by the government, but you will always see Harvard University will never compete with Oxford University. Correct, no, students? Because the industry is controlled by the government, but both of the people have different point of view. Another thing is students, media. Now, one media will give one information. Their news will not be the same. Even if the news is same, the presentation methodology will be different. Another thing, students, cinema industry. Now, students, if you see, Hollywood will never compete with Bollywood, but Hollywood and Bollywood will effectively have something called censorship. Sometimes, if there is excess violence in a movie, there will be a notice to remove those things in the movies before they are released to the market. So, students, this is the structure. And if I'm not mistaken, the best thing, the cleanest environment that an organization can work, if I'm not mistaken, is this Lions Pride segment. The cleanest environment is Lions Pride segment, if I'm not mistaken. Very clean, nothing to worry also. The biggest challenge for every business is this Shark Tank business, which is very challenging and tight business for everyone. So I'll just make sure it is very clear. So in this case, I can effectively say this is a blue area, very clean water. But this one is a bleeding area. It's full of red. So if you invest something in this, you will definitely have a bigger issue for your stocks, your investment, everything. Now, students, I have to ask a question. Where do we stand? Where does Robobryce stands in this industry in Tesla? If you are the strategist of Robobryce, can you tell me where do we stand? That is the question. In this quadrant, where does our organization stand? Students, I'm asking that question. Where does our organization stand?
Wolfgang?
Wolfgang?
Excellent. Excellent. Wolfgang.
There are only six
The
players in the
correct
market.
6 players in the market and they are united. Correct, no, doctor, if I'm not mistaken. That means even our number one competitor, Power, is directly giving their orders for us. Correct, no, doctor, if I'm not mistaken. But if you see, if that was a Shark Tank, even if we can produce it, they may not give. So I'll write down here, Robobryce is effectively falling in the Wolfgang sector. Wolfgang sector. So this is one thing I can say, Wolfgang. And the reason for that is 6 players only. That is the reason they told. Now this 6 players only statement is very critical when you're writing an answer. Now, when there is a macroeconomic risk like interest rate risk, can we all join together as a cartel and ask the bank to reduce the interest rate? Possible or not possible, doctor, in a situation like this?
Possible.
Possible. Now, this is strategic thinking. Can I get a double Y in the chat box, students, if you understand? This is only how the strategic environment will work. And especially students from Asia will know how Reliance, this Adani group, all these people control the government because they have formed an alliance called Wolfgang. I think Ayana madam got that clearly. How Reliance everyone control is the Wolfgang strategy. So in the textbook, they
Yes,
are
sir.
effectively teaching us mostly technical models like example, interest rate forwards, forward rate arrangement, swapping, all those things. But in real life, you are not going for those things in practical. If you have a very strong alliance in the market, you can effectively control the policymakers. I believe everyone got that point of view very, very, very clearly. So let's start with the mock two answers. And I assume that you have already watched the mock number one. It was a very good mock, students, for your understanding. So don't worry, students, let's start analyzing this step by step so that you will get the application very, very well. Okay, let's start doing the question. Now you have the idea where we stand. So students, let's start analyzing this step by step. Evaluate the interest rate management techniques which we can adapt to the current situation. So I'll write down here. Evaluation of mitigating the fluctuation of the interest rate. That is one. And then students, if I'm not mistaken, the second one, analyze an after-sale service we can design in order to make sure that we have a stronger relationship with our customer. This was done very, very well. After-sale service we can design to the customers to enhance the business relationship. Now, students, I believe everyone has got the thinking aspect very, very clearly. This is a very short mock. Purposely, I gave it. Slowly, slowly, the mock content will increase. We are learning. So let's start working first. Eva has sent you in the pathway, has seen you in the pathway, and I invited you to the boardroom. I'm really happy that we have responded to Joe. And thank you very much for making clear with regards to financial management policy we have to adhere, which has made the management clear to include the risk register as well. So this is a continuation from the last mock number one. Presently, there is a 3% increase in the interest rate. We never expected that this can go up, but we have to accept this since it is a decision made by the Reserve Bank of Tesla. Once again, there will be some critics from the shareholders as well. And before they insist, we have to come up with some risk management technique to make sure the interest rate is well managed as well. Secondly, as you are aware, we have provided infrastructure facility to Tesla Food with regards to their beef storage facility. However, we have not mentioned any after-sale services which can be provided as well. Since I guess this is a major weakness we are facing, we are selling the products and we are not providing much after-sale service. I think we need to make sure that we have to manage this well in order to make proper after-sales are provided and communicated as well. So two things are there. One thing is the interest rate has increased by 3%. And the second thing, if I'm not mistaken in this case, is the after-sale services, what we can effectively give to our person. So students, let's start working on this step by step. So the first thing is, let's start working here. The interest rate risk, just be very precise. Interest rate rise is a policy from the Reserve Bank. And we cannot have any control of this. Therefore, we have to make sure we negotiate properly. In order to have a proper stability on interest rate expense. Students, can we go ahead with the writing part? Yes, we can go ahead. Now, students, step by step, shall we start working on this? Yeah, we can start working on this. It's not so complicated, it's very simple. Now, the thing is, students, if you observe our competitor, we have to mention that very, very well. That is Powerobot. Even he has also taken loan at 10%. And even the gearing ratio of our competitor is also quite similar to our company. And also, if you observe, that means two players are having similar interest rate and similar gearing. Indirectly means that the other four players too may have the same range of interest. So the change in this policy may effectively affect the business and the industry also. So I'm going to connect it and show how it will effectively be managed. The change in the interest rate will also affect Favorabot since they too have borrowed the loan at 10% interest rate. They too has borrowed the loan at how much? 10% interest rate. I believe everyone is very, very clear. And also the gearing ranges are similar. And also the gearing ranges are similar. Gearing ranges are similar. In that case, we can also understand since there is only 6 players in the market, they too may have the same interest rate and gearing ratio. Therefore, since the industry is getting affected, we can ask for subsidy. Since how many workers we have? Can someone tell me how many workers we have in total?
12,000.
12,000.
Seven.
Since in our country we have 7,000, sorry, 5,000. In that's a good point. In Tesla 5,000. In
7,000 in
Darlan it's 7,000 if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So students, I'll just write down here. Since the total local total workforce is 12,000, and similarly, other players may too have the same. So government grant can be requested based on the level of output and the job created. Friends, can I get a confirmation from you all in the chat box? If you observe that way of thinking is very practical, very practical. Can I get that point of view, students? Because this is possible when there's a wolf gang. This is possible when there is a wolf gang sector. But in the other sectors, it's not easy to do it. Especially wolf gang, it is possible. But in the Shark Tank, definitely this cannot be done. Students, can I quickly get a sorry, students, there was a network issue. So, students, are you understanding how the practical factors are done? Yeah,
Sir, I
yeah.
have a question.
Yeah. Yes, doctor.
I have a question. How are we
Yes,
relating?
doctor.
interest rates with number of people employed.
Because the reason here is, now example, I will come to that. Slowly I will come to that. Because there is something called the cost push inflation. Are you understanding, doctor? Because in case if government is not doing anything for us, what will happen to the cost of this capital goods? It will increase. If this increases, what happens to the storage cost? It will increase. If the storage cost increases, what will happen to the supermarket cost? It will increase. So in that case, when the things are going up, there are chances that the demand goes down and effectively people will start closing down the stores, affecting the jobs. Are you getting that point, doctor? I will continue with that, but are you clear with that holistic aspect of thinking? Okay. So students, I'll just continue. Further, I'll write it down in the next paragraph. Further, in case if the interest rate is not reduced, the excess cost will be added to the goods sold, which will be increasing the storage cost of goods. And also, this cost will be passed to the consumer. And in that case, it will be a major cost push inflation to the market. Cost push inflation to the market. This will effectively make some changes to the industry where the storage operations will be downsized and effectively affecting the business and the employment. Now, students, you observe this point of view very, very clearly on how I am negotiating with this. Now, here, interest rate management, if you directly write down hedging tools like what you have written in the management case study, there will be an issue whether are you working for the strategic level or are you working for the management level. So students, this is one way where you have to negotiate and tell these factors. If they are not reducing, it will be passed to the consumer as well. So this is one way where the interest rate needs to be mitigated. Now students, if you observe another thing, some students are writing swaps. Now, if you go for a swaps, again, if the interest rate changes, there will be another issue because it will be even another problem. And if you go for forward trade arrangement, once again, it will be another problem because we don't know what will happen to the interest. They have not given anything specifically to this. I think Linon has written a very good point. I'm taking from that. Another method to make sure the interest cost is controlled is by making cost efficiency by increasing the output. Therefore, in that case, the company will be able to have a better control over the increase in the interest rate which will be mitigated internally, which will be mitigated internally. Example, we can reduce inefficient costs. We can reduce inefficient cost within the firm. And therefore, this will make sure that the interest cost is reduced. Another factor to be considered can be, now students in Darlan. Now you see in our pre-seen material, our currency is depreciating. But we don't know what is happening in Darlan. Again, they are saying Darlan is cost of living is very less. If I'm not mistaken, cheap labor. Maybe their currency is strong. Maybe. So if the interest rate is going higher in our country, what we have to do effectively is we have to invest in Tesla, and we have to take a loan from which country students? We have to take a loan from Darlan. So what happens is it gets cancelled off. Internal hedging. I'll just teach you. Now, if you see Tesla, the current country, the interest rate is 10% plus how many percent? Plus how many percent? 3%. Correct? Now, students, if you see Darlan, we have a factory there, but let's assume in that country, the interest rate, let's assume, students, 9%. So what you can effectively do is, students, you can invest. If you invest, you will get interest income. And then students, what will happen is, in a country where there is low interest, what you have to do? Borrow and pay what, students? Low interest. So this is one strategy you could have used. Can I get a Y in the chat box, students, if you got this ideology, students? The current thing, we can't do anything, but we can do this one, students. I believe that you got that point, but no one was thinking in the strategic level. Now, this one, you may not get a lot of marks, but this one will give you the confidence that the examiner has understood this student is thinking better. The student's thinking is better. So I'll write down here one more factor to be considered is that we can change the country of borrowing in the future and invest in Tesla instead of borrowing. For instance, we can borrow in Darlan and pay low interest and invest in Tesla and earn high interest, which may set off the interest cost. Full stop. This can be an internal hedging decision. Very practical point of view, students. However, there are exposure to market risk, since there can be changes in the rates anywhere. Full stop. Students, that is one. Now, I'll just do some criticism on forward rate arrangement and also swaps. Since swap can be an option, technically, theoretically, okay? In practical aspect, it is very difficult to find a counterparty with the same amount and the same time period. Therefore, the risk is high. And it may not be practical. And also, forward rate arrangement may have the same issue. Students, can I quickly get a confirmation from you all in the chat box, students, if you are clear with this point of view? Can I get it? So, students, these are the discussion points, but understand it very well, students. You have to think like an economist and a risk manager in this case. Don't just jump into technical models. Think like you are in the Wolfgang industry. Think like how you will practically solve problem, how will you use the cartel to use it, how you will explain the employment issues that will come forward. And just remember one thing, Tesland is a developed country. So in these countries, people have high values and respect towards your statements, whatever you are saying. Students, if you are fine with that, we can just go on to the next one. The after sale service we can design to customers to enhance the business relationship. That is one thing. So students, the first thing I can generally say is we can make sure there is an intranet service, sorry, not intranet, extranet service, where the clients can directly contact the service. And we too can always share them online contents with regards to how the systems in the warehouse needs to be maintained. Since there are many technology which is driven by softwares, we can make sure that the softwares are up to date by providing new features like human identification and non-human identification in the pathways. And also slowly embed the AI into the machines so that the speed may increase. So that is one important factor. Secondly, we can also provide new informations with regards to new products we are designing. Example, I'll take an example from the material. Can you remember there was a technology, students, LiDAR technology. Example, LiDAR technology can be connected as well, where the company can make sure that they are able to have a better view of the internal, I can say, internal collisions and better speed. Further, security systems can be enhanced. For example, in case of excess heating, the machine gives indicators to prevent fire or any explosions. Students, explosions can come in the exam, just keep in mind explosions. Full stop. Further, there can be discounts offered for asset replacement, since we can have a loyal customer base. Now, this I am just summarizing this, students, for your understanding. So the relationship prevails for the long time. Students, can I get a confirmation? Because students, the part B you all have written very well, but I want to have these things. LiDAR technology was not there, students. So these are the factors were missing. Other than that, it was very, very well executed. Now, a quick recap on how to think. Now, students, you have to understand that you are in the strategic level of management where you set the rules. So you have to be aware about what is Porter's 5 forces. But you need not follow the framework because you are a strategist. You have to think beyond the framework to give a solutions to the market. Example, I told you, Richard Branson, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, everyone are thinking outside the framework which comes with innovation and creativity. And then students, if you see this complexity in the business ecosystem is also one more factor that you have to keep in mind. I believe that everyone has got that clearly. Any questions you like to ask me, you can ask me, students. So I'll go for the one-to-one session. Aina madam, any questions? Doctor, any questions?
No, sir.
And Mr. Hamzat, any questions?
No, sir, it's fine. So mock 3 you will upload today, sir?
Already uploaded.
All right. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Lennon, any questions? Rahul, any questions?
No, sir. Thanks.
Thank you. So students, mock 3 is already updated. And again, students, the initial first 5 mocks, don't worry. Because the first 5 mocks objective is to make sure that you are thinking. And then, if I'm not mistaken, we can go with the strategic stand. I'll tell you the tricks and tips on how to pass this. But always remember the golden rule. If you are following the framework, you will not pass. The reason is you are going to be qualified. And ACMA is the designation you may get if you have working experience. So in that case, students, you have to think more practically to the situation. So students, thank you very much for your time. And I will meet you up on the Friday class. Thanks a lot, students.